Hello, I'm back with another story. This one is called Evan Mitchell-Kazansky. I'm going to say this all wrong, by Blue Mountain Ferry on AO3. They chose not to use archive warnings. Additional tags will be in the description. This one is a 911 combined with Top Gun. The summary is: then, Margaret and Philip Buckley did not want to raise their children well into their 40s. That's why they had Maddie and Daniel when they did. When they did plan to have Evan, in the moment, they didn't think of how it would mess up the rest of their life plans. So when Maddie left for college, they decided sending Evan to the Army and Navy Academy in California would be for the best. Little did they know that this was one of the best things they could do for their youngest child, because not long into his second semester, he ran into Admiral Tom Mitchell-Kazansky. Now, Buck did not think he would ever go back to the Navy, not after the last disastrous mission, not after he found a new team and family in LA, not after he started to put down roots. But Buck never thought someone would plant a bomb on a fire truck. He never thought he would be at ground zero of a tsunami. He never thought he would have to fight for his job, or that others would become bitter and hateful about him trying to get back to work. So when he gets a call from his pops that he's needed down at Top Gun, well, it's not like he's doing much at the 118 now, and it's not like he could say no to the conflict fit anyways. Notes about this AU. Author note. Notes about this AU. Buck finds out about Daniel earlier. Maddie does not tell him, which strains their relationship. Buck is raised by Ice and Mav alongside Bradley. Bradley cuts contact with everyone, but Buck is stubborn, so Bradley gets the same postcard treatment that Maddie gets. Buck did not sue the fire department, but his actions do open up an investigation, and the union lawyer asks a lot of prying and personal questions. This becomes known as the lawsuit because lawyers are involved, but there's no actual suing. I'm still hashtagging things out of my brain, so we'll see where this goes. Let's get started. Then, Admiral Thomas Iceman Kansas walked at an almost leisurely pace through the halls of the Army and Navy Academy. He didn't mind touring the campus and giving a speech if needed. However, he detested the meetings and the fact that the main reason he was pushed to come by CO was that it would look good when promotions came up. So here he was, taking the scenic route back to the conference room, where he had a meeting with the deans of the school and General Hathaway, when he heard a shuffling noise from the supplies closet. Now, Tom was well aware of what kind of mischief a couple of teenagers could get up to in a supply closet, and how embarrassing an admiral finding them in any kind of precarious position could be. So he almost walked past, except he was also well aware how cruel children could be to each other, so he carefully opened the door. Sitting on the floor with the supplies closet was a slip of a boy with a thick book on his lap. The boy looked up at him with the big blue eyes until it seemed to register to him who stood in front of him. "Sir!" The boy scrambled up, pretending to look somewhat presentable. "At ease, kid," I said. God, he remembered when Bradley was this little and cute before he started to enter puberty last year. "What are you doing in here, kid? I can think of a few better places to read than here. The library, for instance." "Mrs. Pruitt always says I'm too noisy, so I try not to go to the library when she's there, and my bookmates say I'm a nerd for reading for fun." "Well, that's not right," I said sadly. There was very little he could do directly for the kid. "What are you reading?" "The Nat Ops for the 514 Tomcat. It's the one you talked about in your speech this morning. And I really wanted to know the specs of how they compare to the 515, which I did start reading about last month before I got distracted by the history of the U.S. Lexington. Which, did you know that..." The kid suddenly cut himself off. His bright blue eyes dulled, and his waving hands were tucked behind his back. His head of curls dropped, and one foot started to scuff the floor. "Sorry, sir. I shouldn't bother you with my stupid fun facts." "What's your name, kid?" "Evan Buckley, sir." "Tell you what, Mr. Buckley. I'm so sorry this sounds cut off because my brother keeps walking in. This is why I usually record at 1 a.m. Oh, I'm so sorry. Tell you what, Mr. Buckley. You shouldn't be reading in the supplies closet. It's not safe. Now, I don't think this violation requires me to notify the deans, but there should be consequences. The kid perked up a bit at Ice's words, but then drooped again when he mentioned consequences. Ice took out one of his cards and handed it to Evan. When you finish reading the F-14 now tops, I want you to call and tell me everything you learned. Really, sir? Evan asked, looking up at him with his big blue eyes. Really, kid. Now, Buck sighed as he finished drying and putting away the pots and pans that Bobby used for lunch. He'd been back at the 118 for a little over a month, and so far he'd been on cleanup duty, clearing up the rigs after a call that he didn't get to go on, taking care of gear after a rescue that he wasn't a part of, cleaning up the kitchen after a meal he didn't get to eat. He was starting to feel like Daisy from Downtown Abbey. He didn't do this much scut work when he was a probie. He started wiping down the counters while trying to ignore the laughter the others were huddled around the TV, playing Mario Kart. A year ago, he and Bobby would have made lunch and cleaned up together. He would have eaten with the team, sitting next to Eddie, laughing with Hen and Chim. He would have had help with the afternoon chores and would have been included in the barracks for Mario Kart tournament. He's pulled from his walling by his phone ringing. Not wanting to get any more on Bobby's bad side, he continues to wipe the counter as he answers, tucks his phone against his ear. Go for Buck? Lieutenant Buckley. I'm afraid this is not a social call. Buck almost fumbles with his phone at his pop's raspy voice. Sir? Lieutenant, you're being recalled from the Navy Reserves. You are to repost at Top Gun at 0700 on Monday. An ensign is en route with all the official paperwork, but I figure you could use an official call. But sir! Evan. Buck snaps his mouth shut at his pop's serious tone. I would not recall you if I did not need you. But it's been months! Buck protests. He had long since stopped pretending to clean, instead focusing all his efforts on trying to stay in L.A. without saying too much in this setting. He ran his free hand through his hair. Maybe he could go to the roof, although that was just asking for the wrath of Bobby. Nonsense. You logged your flight hours for the month. Yeah, but that was the first time since... Well, you logged all the flight hours allowed by your care team when doing physical therapy for the crush. You were off blood thinners now, even though they may still be in your system. You are a certified EMT who has training in multiple ways to quickly and efficiently stop the bleeding. There will definitely be some waivers you need to sign, but we both know you've flown with worse. But I need you, Evan. Buck snapped his mouth shut. It had been a long time since he was needed. It had been a long time since he was wanted. Yes, your flight skills are an asset, but this is going to be a very high-profile, classified mission that needs to be flown by the best and taught by the best, and I can't be there to help smooth the tempers of stubborn aviators while I do greatly admire Admiral Simpson. I worry he does not have the mindset that will see this through with the best outcome. Okay, Buck sighed, defeated. Is there anything you can tell me? Not much over an unsecure line, but let's say it's looking to be a bit of a family reunion. What? If you get to town by Friday morning, I could tell you more, but I have to fly out that evening to Pearl. Alright, I'll see you soon. I love you, kiddo. See you soon. Ice hung up the phone before Buck could reply. He leaned forward on the counter, bracing his forearms on the surface he had just cleaned. Fuck. He thought he was done with the Navy. Sure, he still had to show up at base once a month when medically able as part of the reserves, but he thought that was after his last mission. After his squad's burnout, he was done. It was only going over his options with Ice that convinced him not to turn in his wings completely, that it would be better in the long run to transfer to the reserves. Ice had promised him that he could finish out in the reserves unless Buck changed his mind, or Ice absolutely needed him. So to pull him now... Fuck. Are you okay, Buck? That seemed like some phone call. Buck looked up to see that Hen had abandoned the game and had wandered over to him. Yeah, I'll be fine, he told her, scrubbing his hand over his face, which probably did nothing to convince her that it was, in fact, fine. Are you sure? The others had wandered over as well, trying and failing to look like they weren't eavesdropping. Eddie was looking at him with that stone-faced anger that had become oh so familiar since the investigation into the 118 that he had investigated in his attempt to get his job back. Timmy looked curious. Even the gossip. And Bobby was looking at him with what he had taken to call his cold captain look. It was the look he used at the big scenes or when giving interviews. It was remarkably similar to his pop's Iceman look. Buck was about to respond when they interrupted. Lieutenant Buckley, sir! The Einstein that Ice had warned him about was at the top of the stairs, saluting. At ease, Einstein. Ensign, he said, snapping into his officer persona, as Cody had dubbed it. I believe you have... I'm not getting his voice right. I believe you have something for me? Sir! The Einstein said, marching over and handing him a manila folder. Thank you. Dismissed. The Einstein saluted once before making an about-face and exiting the loft. What the hell was that? Who was that? What is going on? Buck ignored them as he opened the folder and shuffled through the papers. It looked like Iceman had provided multiple copies of everything, which made his life significantly easier. He started reorganizing them into a system that would make it easier to get his affairs in order. He needed some sticky notes and maybe a clipboard. Buck? Bobby's single word cut through the multitude of other questions. Oh, are you guys done talking at me? He asked, looking up from his papers, and finished his words. But to answer some of your questions, that was Einstein Rodriguez, at least according to his uniform. He was dropping off my deployment paperwork, which was also what the phone call was about. Speaking of, Captain, this is for you, he said, handing over a portion of the papers. I want you to take most of these over to HQ, and you will get the more detailed official LAFD paperwork from HR at a later date, he stated, putting the cleaning supplies away while steadfastly trying to avoid looking at the others around him. I'm going to go ahead and clean out my locker today. I might be able to swing working my 12-hour shift tomorrow, especially since I'm a man behind, but I'll talk to Chief about getting afloat until you can hire a new guy. He finally built up to the nerve to look up at his team, only to see shocked and stunned faces on everyone's face. Shocked and stunned looks on everyone's faces. Bobby had frantically flipping through the papers. Whew. Bobby was frantically flipping through the papers Buck had given him, and Eddie was clenching and unclenching his fist. What do you mean you're being deployed? Chimney asked. Exactly as I said, Chimney, Buck said, rolling his eyes. The Navy says I have to go, so I'm going, because I'm not ending up in Navy jail and losing my pension. I didn't know you were in the Navy, Hen cried. Motherfucker. Buck could not deal with this right now. He had enough shit going on without dealing with his team. Former team. Whatever. The name Patience was going to snap sooner rather than later at this rate. Yeah, well, you also didn't know I'd assist her until she broke into my apartment. I'm a pretty private person. We literally knew every detail of your sex life for like 16 months. Yeah, but that's like sex. Not like anything personal or important. Buck, Hen started, voice softening with concern before he interrupted her. I know. It wasn't healthy and was probably externalized as my internal cry for help after several very big life changes. Luckily, someone did actually notice the cry for help and got me hooked up and working on it with a therapist. Buck shrugged but continued before anyone shot off some smart-ass comments about his past therapist experiences. Now, if we're done with the Spanish Inquisition, I've got stuff to do, and I'm getting whiplash from having an actual conversation with any of you for the first time in months. And with that, Buck bounded down the stairs to the locker room, and within 5 minutes he exited the fire station with a full duffel bag and small pep in his step. He barely even noticed the stares of his soon-to-be formal teammates. That is the end. I love this author's work, and I will be podficking some more of their work in the future. Please do check them out on AO3. The link will be in the description. I hope you have a great night, evening, morning, day, whatever you're doing, wherever you are.